Hello, I'm so sorry I can't be with you in Chicago. I don't fancy coming over the water under your current administration. I'd like to thank Ella Gonzalez very much for inviting me and putting up with the delay in getting this sorted out. So, a cultural history of dirty clothes. In 1972, American working class activist, trade unionist, communist, and mother of 4 daughters, Tillie Olsen, wrote, "The atom bomb was in manufacture before the first automatic washing machine." This blistering observation comes in an essay you can find on JSTOR, Women Who Were Writers in Our Century, 1 out of 12. This is a dazzling summation of the predicament of working class women with households to run. I nearly chose to read it out verbatim today rather than give a talk. Olsen's other work, which can bear repeated perusal, is her classic short story, I Stand Here Ironing, in which the semi-autobiographical voice of a mother meditates on her relationship with a daughter as she does the ironing. She'd struggled to provide the girl with emotional support as a working mother during World War II. War years, I don't remember them well. I was working there with 4 smaller ones now. There wasn't time for her. She had to help to be a mother and a housekeeper and a shopper. Mornings of crisis and near hysteria, trying to get lunches packed, hair combed, coats and shoes found, everyone to school or childcare on time, the baby ready for transportation, and always the paper scribbled on by smaller ones, the homework not done. The mother is worried for her daughter's future in a patriarchal world threatened by nuclear bombs and feels guilty about having neglected her emotionally. She grimly concludes, "So all that is in her will not bloom, but in how many does it? There is still enough left to live by. Only help her to know, help make it so there is cause for her to know that she's more than this dress on the ironing board, helpless before the iron." I'd like to offer a little bit of autobiography that explains my interest in laundry. I was born in 1959. My mother, who had 4 children to look after, didn't acquire her first washing machine until 1967. And I have vivid early memories of the Saturday trip to the launderette, which took up the entire morning, and at least 2 of us were commandeered to assist in it. Usually me and my sister. The boys obviously had more important things to do. The appropriate coins had been carefully collected in an allocated piggy bank. All the beds were stripped and the sheets and pillowcases, there weren't any duvets then, brought down to the kitchen. School uniforms, gym kit, underwear, baby clothes, as well as the 2 adult civvy costumes and my priest father's ecclesiastical surplices, all needed to be collected from bathroom baskets and piled up on the kitchen table and bundled into enormous cotton drawstring bags, sorted according to colour. Then we drove in the 8th-hand Bentley, which my mother needed to crank by hand, to the local launderette. We needed to get there very early to avoid queuing for the machines, and once there, at least 3 loads of washing were put in the machines for 45 minutes, then transferred to dryers, then folded carefully and packed back in the bags, according to whether they needed ironing or not. And my fascination with laundry developed rapidly when I worked in a hospital laundry in the early 1980s, in the last long summer vacation before my final exams. I had my first experience of the total punishment of a 9-hour shift of repetitive, mindlessly boring, hazardous, physically demanding labour, and what it inflicts even on a strong young adult, especially in the intense heat of a room in July in southern England full of machines that heated things up. The stench from the dirty clothes and sheets was disgusting. Many patients in this mental hospital were doubly incontinent. Burns from the big pull-down steam presses were a persistent danger. It was my first introduction to what life is like for working class people across the planet. It felt to me like entering hell on a daily basis. It indelibly marked my politics. I joined my first trade union. And of course, I knew that at the end of 10 weeks, I'd escape, never to return. I love this picture by British communist artist Clifford Rowe, who made working class people heroic. The history of professional washerwomen is one full of darkness, grinding poverty, backbreaking labour, injury, damp domestic air, disgusting close-up encounters with other richer people's bodily excreta. But so as not to make this lecture a complete catalogue of misery, I present you now with one of the most cheering exhibits in the history of laundry workers, an early 5th century BCE Athenian inscription. It's carved on the base of a periranterion water basin, located in 1885 in a fill inside the Parthenon. It has the shape of a small column without flutes that has a base and a plain capital, both carved on the same block of porous limestone. The upper surface has a socket to receive the marble perianterion, while round its perimeter an inscription reads Smikaithi Plintria Decatern Anetheken, meaning the washer Smikithi dedicated the perianterion as a tithe to the goddess Athena. There's some pride in this unique inscription, and I hope she made a really good living and received Athena's favour. A couple of Athenian vases show women washing clothes or other textiles in the generation immediately after Smikithi. The remains of a washerwoman were found at Pompeii, at least according to those writing up reports of the excavations in 1777. A drawing was made of a basement laundry room. In the right foreground is a well. Behind it is a shallow earthenware basin, and in the rear is a fireplace on which we are told a large bronze vessel was found, and this was removed to the museum at Portici. The skeleton of the washerwoman, apparently overcome at her task, lies behind the basin. She seems to have been shut up in this vault, the staircase having been filled with rubbish, and to have waited to death with calm resignation and true Roman fortitude, as the attitude of the skeleton really seems to indicate. That's what the excavators wrote. Miko Flor has illuminated greatly the lives of other Pompeii workers in the Fulonikai, workshops dedicated to fulling, of which we have one wall of really fine illustrations. But today I'm mostly interested in amateur laundresses, all the women in history, including most of us here today, who've washed their families' clothing and textiles in addition to working for a living at another craft. But laundresses is an image which has been represented throughout the Western cultural tradition as made by men, not by Smikithi and her equivalents, and made them as appealing and glamorous. The chief culprit here is, of course, Homer. First, the Iliad. The violent showdown between Hector and Achilles is marked by a famous counter-image denoting peacetime activity. They kept on running by the lookout post and the wind-ruffled fig tree, always out from under the wall along the long wagon track, and arriving at two fair-flowing natural fountains where double springs well up into that well, up into the Addis of Scamander. One flows with warm water and steam rises from it like smoke from a blazing fire. But the other, even in summer, emits water as cold as hail or chill snow or ice that forms from water. Right beside them are wide washing tanks, beautiful, made of stone, where in the former days of peace, the Trojans' wives and lovely daughters used to wash their shining clothes before the sons of the Achaeans came. Fair-flowing, beautiful, lovely, shining. Washerwomen provide a brief locus amoenus in a poem short of such lyrical description, just to break up the sequence of male violence and delay its climax a little. We, of course, hear about them not in their own voices, but that of the male narrator. But the text which has done more than any other to skew our cultural representations of female domestic labour is the Nausicaa narrative in Odyssey 6. An important subgenre of painting has been inspired by its aestheticization and eroticization of the figure of the ancient Greek washerwomen. Athena visits the Phaeacian adolescent in a dream, disguised as one of her best friends, the daughter of Dymas. Nausicaa lies in her richly wrought bedchamber, She's as beautiful as the goddesses, and her two lovely handmaidens sleep on either side of the bright doors. Athena tells her that she's soon to be married and must go and launder her girdles and robes and bright coverlets. The actual work is confined to 11 lines. Since this is the utopian Phaeacia, human labour is light and nature highly cooperative. The narrator tells us, when they came to the beautiful streams of the river, where were the washing tanks that never failed, for abundant clear water welled up from beneath and flowed over to cleanse garments however soiled, there they loosed the mules from under the wagon and drove them along the eddying river to graze on the honey-sweet water grass. And they themselves took in their arms the raiment from the wagon and bore it into the dark water and trampled it in the trenches, busily vying with each other. Now when they'd washed the garments and had cleansed them of all the stains, they spread them out in rows on the seashore. The waves dashing against the land washed the pebbles cleanest. And that's almost all we hear of the actual laundry. The entire remainder of Book 6 recounts instead the young virgin's encounter with the strange man, Odysseus, who's emerged from the briny sea. We are asked to imagine the girls bathing and anointing themselves with oil, with a suggestion that they've done the washing naked, since they're waiting for their clothes to dry. They enjoy their picnic, throw off their headgear and play ball, singing a song that white-armed Nausicaa leads. We, the audience, watch them in our mind's eye, helped by the celebrated similes in which Nausicaa is likened to Artemis, roving over mountaintops in the company of wood nymphs, taller and more beautiful than them all. Athena then decides that the comatose Odysseus needs to wake up so that Nausicaa can lead him to the city. She makes a bad throw with the ball. Being a good aim is not required of a princess in Homer's world, and it lands in the water. The girls cry aloud rather than going after it, and Odysseus wakes and covers his naked genitals with a branch. No wonder this has excited male audiences across the centuries. And as soon as the manuscripts of the Odyssey began circulating in the West and making it into print in the 15th and 16th centuries, visual artists were repeatedly inspired to create romantic, idyllic paintings of this deeply deceptive but archetypal scene in which female laundry labour is put into soft and sexy focus for priapic male consumption. The depictions of the Nausicaa scene, like the history of soap power adverts, of course overlap not just with patriarchy but with racism. All these maidens are so very white. The inventor of muscular Christianity, Charles Kingsley, wrote an essay in 1873 entitled Nausicaa in London, which harnesses the ancient text in a toxic polemic that manages to fuse Aryan fantasies about superior physiques and physical education with contempt of the urban working class, an obsession with sanitation, and an implicit critique of the idea of higher education for women. A wise man would sooner see his daughter a Nausicaa than a Sappho, an Aspasia, a Cleopatra, or even a Hypatia, he fulminated. We get some relief from the sexism, if not the racism, when a woman and a lesbian, Ethel Harris, does this picture of Nausicaa and her maidens in 1920. In the Coen brothers' fusion of Nausicaa's women with the sirens in O Brother, Where Art Thou, the 2000 feature film, we have a moment when the escapees come across three women doing their laundry in a river. The sirens, obviously. They sing Didn't Leave Nobody But the Baby by Emmylou Harris while moving in a slightly slowed motion, and the effect on the men is decidedly erotic. You and me and the devil makes three. Don't need no other lovin', baby. And one or more removes from the direct influence of Nausicaa is the entire subgenre of paintings depicting washerwomen. There have been hundreds. The physical positions women must take up to wash clothes, at least before the invention of washing machines, and their partial nudity, have frequently attracted the male painter's eye. One trope is washerwomen working in the ruins of classical buildings. Another is definitely class-based, the appeal of women, especially very young women, labouring at the laundry in semi-obscene but rather exciting to men states of partial undress. Witness Washerwomen on the Calton Hill, 1825. This is Greenside on the western slope of the Calton Hill in Edinburgh, which was traditionally used as a bleach field. The sight of young girls trampling clothes in tubs was regarded by young blades as a rather attractive, not to say vaguely indecent spectacle. As Captain Edmund Burt wrote in 1754, "I shall take notice of one thing more which is commonly to be seen by the sides of the river, and not only here, but in all parts of Scotland where I've been. That is, women with their coats tucked up, stamping in tubs on linen by this way of washing, not only in summer, but in the harshest frosty winter weather, when their legs and feet are almost literally as red with blood as the cold, and often two of these wenches stamp in one tub, supporting themselves by their arms thrown around each other's shoulders." And the colonial painter's eye is just as bad. That all women can be reduced to their role as a washerwoman also featured regularly in publicity materials targeting agitators for female suffrage. Note this cartoon on a postcard circulating around the time that the first British women achieved a vote just after World War I. The woman reads a journal entitled "Votes for the Ladies." Gender stereotyping education also needs to begin early, via, for example, illustrations to books designed for little girls. And the advertisements of the 1950s and 1960s portray women in hallucinogenic and orgasmic states of joy about their washing machines and soap powders. And I finish with a last personal anecdote. When my little girls were restless on Saturday afternoons, I used to take them to a toy shop called the Early Learning Centre. And one day, one of them pounced on a toy ironing board in the girls' section, obviously, and screamed at the top of her voice, "What's that, mummy?" She'd never seen one. I never iron. I was ashamed in front of the other mums, but actually very proud that my little girls did not know what ironing was. Thank you very much.